A surprise in South Carolina, students walking out in support of a fired school security officer. About 100 students staged a protest Friday at Spring Valley High in Columbia. They said Deputy Ben Fields should not have lost his job over his controversial actions in school this week. Fields was caught on camera pulling a student out of her chair, throwing her to the ground, and dragging her across the floor. Fields' attorney says the deputy's actions were justified and that they were lawful. Joining me now, Lisa Thurau, Executive Director for Strategies for Youth, an organization that trains school officers across the country. So the students and those walking out saying, hey, what this officer did was right. What are the training standards for these officers and how they should react in situations like these?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because I think it is something of a national shame that on average 1% of officer recruit time in the academy is spent on training officers how to deal with juveniles, and about 90% of that time, in other words, less than 6 hours, is spent on juvenile law, not on how to communicate effectively with youth, not on how to de-escalate situations or avoid use of force with youth or calibrate the use of force they use with youth. Then you put these patrol officers into the school situation without further standards, without clarity of their role, without oversight and guidance about what they're supposed to do and what they are and are not supposed to respond to. Like, he should never have been called into that situation in the first place. I think there's general consensus about that. You're going to have these kinds of problems, and you're seeing them across America right now. In fact, in South Carolina, the total number of hours in the academy for training recruits is about 3.5 hours on juvenile justice. That's not enough.
When you look at this officer and then the reaction, was it proper? Should have Deputy Ben Fields lost his job? I'm not in a position to judge that, because I don't know if he's in a part of a union and there's a grievance procedure. But I do not think that in any way his response was proper, proportionate, just, fair, or even something that promotes the legitimacy of law enforcement. Now, I think he did his sheriff's department a great disservice, and I can understand why they would want to distance themselves from him, because the lack of proportionality in his response to a youth not putting her cell phone away just defies logic here. It's grotesque. But I also think that if we only focus on the sheriff's deputy, we're missing the larger picture, which really bears examination, which is, why did the teacher think this rose to the level of calling in a school administrator? Why did the school administrator cede his or her authority and say, oh, I need a police officer? I mean, part of the reason we may see 100 of the 2,100 youth in that school protesting the sheriff's discipline is because we've normalized use of force in so many interactions when there isn't immediate compliance. And frankly, the federal district courts in civil rights suits are saying, you know what, even it's a 7-year-old who doesn't comply, it's a 14-year-old who doesn't comply. If they don't comply, yep, officers may use force. We need to re-examine that if we're going to hold on to our democratic ideals of a country that's supposed to support dissent and individualism and to question authority, as is our historical legacy. Lisa Thurau, trainer of high school police officers, thank you so much. I appreciate your time today.
Thanks for having us on.